I am Talnashev Alexei Olegovich. My position was rifleman. I served in the 60th Brigade, 2nd Company, 37th Battalion. I was called out from the T-100 camp, more or less forcibly, because the Red Camp, well, they gave us a choice. If you don't want to fight...
You mean prison, right?
Yes, prison. If you don't want to fight, life in the camp will be hard for you. So, out of 12 people, only one refused to fight, and 11 of us agreed to go, because we understood perfectly well what it's like to sweep asphalt with a broom when there's no dust at all. That kind of thing. We agreed and signed the contract on July 5th. And what did they give us? A year of supervision for each person. So we went to OL to train, as they say, in street-like conditions, in the forest. We trained there.
Wait, what were you in for exactly?
I was in for drugs under Article 37, Part 2. They gave me 8 years. I served 3 years and 11 months. And that's it.
Where are you from originally?
I'm from the city of Kharkiv. Our training lasted about 5 weeks. It was tactical medicine, moving in pairs, navigation and map reading. But what I can say is that in practice, things are completely different for us. For example, tactical medicine there means filling out forms, examining someone, say a 300 from another unit under a bulletproof vest. That doesn't happen. We just don't have time to do all that. We just slap something on quickly. If he can walk, let him run on his own. If not, we'll pick him up later. That's how it is. And as for moving in pairs, well, I haven't seen anyone do that here. Here, they just walk. When we get hit, we scatter. That's how it all happens. And navigation, well, just simply you look at the map, memorize it and go. That's how it is. Because we're like convicts. No one is going to trust us with a map. You look at it, memorize it and go.
What was the attitude toward you as a special contingent? What do you think?
Well, at first they didn't let us into the city at all. For the first 5 weeks, we were basically at some kind of holiday camp. The nearest kiosk was literally 2 kilometers away. And even then, we only found out there was a kiosk at the very end. Otherwise, they just didn't let us out at all. They promised us a signing bonus in the contract, and it does exist. It's even written in the contract. You get a signing bonus, basically some startup money to buy clothes, shoes, and personal items. I never received that. Then, about the military IDs, they keep promising, just talking and talking. To this day, I still don't have a military ID. Maybe someone has seen it in electronic form, but I've never had it in my hands. As for those tags, the so-called death tokens, I never got those either. So basically, if a person goes missing, then that's it, they're just gone. There's no such person anymore. That just doesn't happen.
So, compared to regular servicemen, is there a difference in how you're treated?
Of course there is. There is a difference. For example, after we finished training at the camp, we arrived, had something to eat, and that's it. We just sat around in this so-called boarding house doing nothing. We didn't have our own well, not even our own chocolate or anything like that. At first, we all had a real problem with cigarettes because we had no money, couldn't buy anything, couldn't go anywhere, couldn't do anything. Relatives, well, even for relatives, it was impossible to come visit us. It was basically just, a closed-off place, basically. It was for convicts, because...
Then tell me about your relatives, since we've already touched on the topic. Family, relatives.
Well, about my relatives, yes. I have a mother. She lives in the city of Kharkiv. Basically, then I have a brother, my own brother. He also lives in Kharkiv. He works as a construction worker on bridge structures. Well, unofficially, because officially it's not possible, since those TCC guys immediately look for people, catch them, round them up. Really. That's how it is. Well, it tries, yeah, it doesn't work much, but... Now my brother tells me that if you don't want to work for 20,000, they just say, go ahead, we'll find someone else. There are plenty of people willing to do that. That's what my brother tells me. That's how they drive people out, catch them.
So officially it turns out you can't get a job because they'll take you right away?
Yeah, you can't get an official job because without a military ID, basically, you just can't. And if you somehow do get a job, they'll take you right away. That's how it is.
How old is your mom?
My mom is 56 years old.
Does she know that you, perhaps maybe left the area known as the zone?
Yes, my mom knows that I left the zone to fight. At first she was scared, but then she told me to take care of myself, to try to survive somehow.
When did you sit down?
I got locked up on August 10, 2020.
You were locked up before the war started?
Yes, I was locked up before the war. And after 5 weeks of training, the way they taught us all that medical stuff, movement at the front, it all happens differently. Because if you move in pairs there are drones flying around. That's completely different. They didn't teach us anything about drones, like how to hide from them, how to move, how to communicate whether someone is ours or not. Out there, you can't really tell if someone is friendly or not. Even if they say they're one of ours, sometimes they're not. There really were situations like that. I went out 8 times one time just to check things out, out of curiosity. And 7 times I went to the SP, and that's actually pretty far. You go there, you get hit by mortars, and then there's our drone. Well, obviously it's not really ours. They're stationed 500, 600 meters away. Those drones, they see everything, but we can't see them. We weren't taught about this, we weren't prepared, nobody told us anything. Well, how is it? You have to move. If you refuse, that's considered desertion. Just like that, they slap you with a charge. So we moved. Yeah, it was tough. Then, I managed to survive there 8 times somehow. On the 9th time, they just sent us out, basically, and I ended up spending 4 days at the strong point. I was supposed to get 4 days of rest after that. That's how it usually is. Just like for all those contract guys, the soldiers. They're different from the convicts. But it turned out that on the 2nd day, my clothes were washed. That's it, pack up and go to, to reinforce the position. My clothes were still wet. All they gave me were these pants, a work shirt, that's what I had, and a jacket. That's it, that's really all I had. They supplied us for 2 days. They said, but I understood that it wouldn't just be 2 days, like you're supposed to hold the position, sit it out there, and that's it, you come back. We agreed. There were 4 of us. Somehow, as usual, I don't know why, but it was all kind of strange, really.
Where did you go?
To the village of Terni. We went to the village of Terni to sit out those promised 2 days. Well, basically, we ended up staying for a 3rd day already, and by then, we just didn't have the strength or the means anymore, basically. We decided to pull back on our own, because we understood that either we would abandon our position on our own and survive, or basically we would just end up staying there dead. And so we acted on our own. Well, we left our positions without orders. It's called pulling back. So that's how it happened. But I didn't pull back very far, because by sunset I realized I had no strength left, so I decided to move just a little, to another spot. And there I ended up finding a cellar. I realized then that basically this wasn't my war. I saw so much there. Corpses, ruined houses. By the way, it was our guys, the Baba Yagas, who were demolishing the houses. Where I was, basically, they leveled all the houses overnight. There's this big street there, maybe 10 houses or so. They bombed them so hard, that was it. We had an incident actually in Pokrovsk. They sent in 2 squads of 9 people each. 2 groups of 9. Out of those 2 groups, only 1 survived, and he was wounded. They were just wiped out.
Are the losses in the unit generally high?
In the 37th Battalion, we had a case, basically, over 3 days when the Russians attacked 2 positions. So there was...
Was that in Terni?
No, that was in Sadi. There's a place there called the Sadi position. We had there...
So it's near Terni, right?
Yes, just a bit further north. It's just a bit north of Terni. So in 3 days, we had 18 wounded on our side, Ukrainians. Then 2 Colombians of the 200 and 1 of the 300 were pulled out, heavily. That all happened in just 3 days. So that's 3 groups of 3 people each, that's 9.
Was that just from your battalion?
Yes, that's just our battalion, the one holding those particular positions.
What was the scariest or most memorable thing you saw?
The scariest thing I saw was just yesterday, 5 absolutely fresh bodies under a tree.
So the first time in Terni, for example, I guess that was the hardest, right? So what did you see there when you arrived?
When did you arrive? What else did we see there? There are no thorns there. It's not a fair fight. It turns out a person goes to fight. But he's not fighting another person well. It's not person against person, it's person against drone. And he doesn't know what to do, what he should do. The drone is watching him. This is almost 90% of the total 300. In 90% of cases. So he's not actually fighting. They tell him, go to the house, hold your position there, stay there for 3 days. But if a drone spots him, that's it, he just won't make it. This is 90% 300. That's how it is. It's just,
Alright. And regarding the supply for your unit, what was the situation like for you?
The supply? Yeah, things were relatively okay for us there. Well, they give out soup rations, there's water. Of course, there are many rounds, but they do give some. It's just that for me, the last time was at Terni. They gave me 4 magazines and a Kalashnikov. That's it. And there, I just at the strong point on those on the systems. We just throw away 3 magazines in the bottles and take 1 back with us. We collected the bottles.
And why is the situation with the ammo so bad?
Well, that's how it turns out. It's coming from the administration. Well, that's how the administration sees it.
So, do you think this attitude might be because you're convicts? Because, well, they know you're being sent on a one-way trip?
There are also specific kinds of convicts among us repeat offenders, drug addicts, alcoholics.
Ah, so among your group, are there people who went as repeat offenders?
Of course, there are.
So, people who were imprisoned and then sent as convicts?
Well, of course, that's exactly how it is. And even among our regular contract soldiers, they are repeat offenders because we don't get any leave. They don't give us any. For us, leave means being a repeat offender. The first time they forgive you, the second time they lock you up.
So there's no leave at all?
None at all. They justify it by saying there's no one to replace you. So, a person serves for 8 months, wants to go home, but can't well, for now is not allowed. So he writes a report and ends up as a repeat offender. The Kalash surrender its armor and that's it. That's the only way. But that's the only way you can see your parents.
Uh-huh.
That's the situation. And as for the cons, well, a con is a con. We've basically been stealing our whole lives. They try to keep us separate somehow. For example, if we live somewhere, it's usually in separate houses, just completely apart, because that's the kind of group we are. Although no, there are people, say, Con, who ended up here. They are decent ones, but still there's no trust. So basically they lump us all together no matter what. There were 46 of us in training. Basically, we hadn't even gotten our first paycheck yet. So on August 8th, it was August 8th anyway. They called up 21 people for, well, basically the first assault operation. Out of those, only about 5 or 6 people made it out unscathed. There were 3 or 4 wounded, those who managed to get out, and the rest were just killed. They just disappeared. That's it. And the others, those who didn't go, who didn't volunteer to go, they just realized it was a total disaster over there.
When was the last time you were in touch with your mother?
Around October 20th.
October 20th?
I didn't get a chance to tell my mom before Turney.
So it's been about a month and a half.
Yeah, I didn't get to tell my mom that I was going to Turney.
Maybe you remember her phone number?
No, my mom is deaf and mute. I communicate with her through Facebook. Yeah, we talk on Facebook.
Do you remember her contact information?
Of course, Elena Sokolova on Facebook, that's all.
Alright. Then, after you register, we'll try to get in touch.
Thank you.
Maybe it'll work out.
So, I ended up being captured. Basically, I was hiding out in a cellar. When we got hit, there were 4 of us. And even I found myself a good spot, with food and all that. I stayed there in the cellar for 30 days. I knew that my people wouldn't come. Going back to my own side was basically a death sentence. Because there was no chance. Without a radio, there was just no way. I understood perfectly well that if some Russian came in, if he didn't shoot me, he'd take me prisoner. And I'd have to beg. And that's exactly what happened. On the 30th day, a Russian soldier came in and took me prisoner. I was grateful because I knew it was my only chance to survive, even if it meant sitting in a Russian prison. At least I was alive. That's how it was.
How did they treat you?
Honestly, excellently. I didn't even expect that.
Well, tell us more.
More details? So basically they handed me over to a guy from the 300 unit. He was in moderate condition. And the 2 of us left the tickets together. I helped him in every way I could, cutting a stick for him and so on. You have to help each other out no matter what. When we reached certain places, I ran into Russian soldiers there. We talked a bit, chatted somewhere, had some chocolate, somewhere they gave me a cigarette, had some water. Well, it wasn't like there was some swearing, but war is war. I'm from Kharkiv, I know Russian, I speak Russian, and just like that they told me, if you don't shoot them, you're not an enemy. That's how they explained it to me. So I ate here, had a meal there. They even gave me some meat patties as a gift, made some strong tea, gave me cigarettes. Yeah. So I ate, had some food there. They didn't beat me at all, didn't insult me, didn't threaten me, didn't break or twist anything. None of that happened at all. So here I am, standing here in one piece. That's how Russians treat Ukrainian prisoners. And all that stuff they say on TV, like they put you in a cage outside in winter or tie you to a tree. Well, I haven't been there yet.
You go for exchanges?
For exchanges? I'll see how they feed us in prison. Because exchange, that's, I think it might actually be worse than here. Here, if they interrogate you, well, as they say, over there they don't interrogate us. What is there to talk about? Well, I understand.
So, if you go back, will you return to the front?
No,
I mean, if you do go back,
they'll force us. Obviously, that's the truth, they'll force us. If they feed you in prison the same way they did in Kharkiv, then you can just wait it out. There's nothing so bad about it.
right. Well, do you think you were lucky that it all ended like this for you?
That's exactly what I wanted. Of course, I was lucky. That's what I was hoping for. I prayed for it. I was sure I would end up as a prisoner. And that's exactly what happened well. Mutual assistance.
Are there any words you'd like to say to your comrades, your family, loved ones, or maybe something to the command? Please, go ahead, say it on camera.
To the command, I can say, be on the front lines yourselves. See for yourselves how things really are there. To my friends, I'll say, let your wife work in the mines in your own basements. It's a mess. And to my mom, I want to say that I'm still alive. That's all. And to my brothers in arms, damn it, don't listen to those in command, they just leave things out and talk a lot of crap. Because I saw it myself. It's not like sitting on the oars there catching birds, but when you shove into the thorns, fucking holding positions, fucking, then you understand where yours are, where they are not yours. That's when you really feel it. That's the only way you'll understand. Otherwise, all you know how to do is get drunk on your own pride.
By the way, what can you say about Terni? What's the situation there now?
About Terni, I can say that most of it is already held by Russian soldiers. Apparently, that's how it is. Because Terni is already... Well, what they're saying about the armed forces bravely holding it off there, that's not true. Terni is practically captured already. The Russians are advancing and everything is working out for them and going well. That's how it is. What they say on TV is elites or lies. I personally saw with my own eyes how things are happening there in Ternak. What Zelensky started there, they're helping him, well, they're sponsoring him, but it's the civilians who are suffering. They force the territorial recruitment centers to round up people to fight. Because, well, they don't want to...
Look, Zelensky has now officially cancelled the elections, supposedly because the war is still going on.
Yes.
And don't you think that the ongoing war is actually quite beneficial for him, in a way, so that he can continue to stay in power?
Well, the war is beneficial for him, but not for us. It's just that, what's in it for him? You see, they take the money, but it's the ordinary Ukrainian people who pay the price. For example, I think that if Kharkiv were well, let's say Russia took Kharkiv, then the dollar rate would have stayed the same as it was. There were hryvnias, now there would be rubles, work would still be there, jobs, factories would be running, everything would be working. But instead, they're just bombing, breaking windows, destroying homes, and who is going to rebuild them? NATO? No one is going to rebuild them. It will have to be built by ourselves. Well, with that budget, I guess the Kharkiv budget will have to rebuild them. It's the ordinary people who are suffering. And this idea of Zelensky is, well, honestly, it's a disaster.
And there will be no one left to rebuild. They'll draft all of you and you'll be killed.
Well, that's also a possibility that everyone will be drafted and killed, and there will be no one left to rebuild. How many young people do we have?
And then Western companies like BlackRock will come to rebuild, the ones that have already practically bought up all your land.
Yeah.
You know about that, right?
Nope.
Well, let me tell you. There's this American company, well, it's just the biggest one, BlackRock, for those who aren't aware, which has acquired and bought up land, a lot of land in Ukraine.
Uh-huh.
And on that land, they've even forbidden you from ever burying your fallen soldiers. So, roughly speaking, the land really isn't even yours anymore, it turns out.
So we'll end up as slaves working for America too, right?
That's how it looks. But, look, yes, they've bought up the land and they've killed off the people. Zelensky, of course, has to somehow pay for the weapons that you're fighting with right now.
Yeah.
For the one, not even you, really. The missiles that are flying toward Russia.
Uh-huh.
They're not just given for nothing. You have to understand that.
Well, you have to pay for them.
And what will you pay with? There's no money.
Land.
There's land, there are natural resources. There's some remaining workforce, those who haven't been drafted yet.
Uh-huh.
Now they will pay.
Well, I just don't know about that.
If Russia doesn't come, but if Russia does come, then no one will owe anyone anything. You'll just live in Russia as usual, and that's it.
Well, like Donetsk and Luhansk live in Russia, and that's all.
Everything's fine for everyone. Houses are being built, roads are being constructed, factories are working, people are getting paid. A peaceful life. Well, except for those rockets that are flying at them from the Ukrainian side.
Yeah.
From time to time.
Well, that's normal. Otherwise, well, then you might as well just surrender Kharkiv right away, and that's it.
Well, you could.
You don't have a mobilization like that, but we do. We have a mobilization all the time, martial law, mobilization, martial law. For people, as soon as they turn 18, that's it. If you don't manage to get into higher education and university, they can catch you right away at the military enlistment office. And we don't have that. For you, it's just, well, for those who want to earn money or those who like to fight, only then do you have contracts. But for me, my contract is basically for life, from the zone until the war ends.
Or until you get killed.
Yeah, or until you get killed.
Well, there is a third way.
To surrender?
How did you act?
Surrendering is the best way. You leave one camp, end up in another. And that's it.
And when the war ends, everything will be wiped clean for you.
Yes.
You could even stay in Russia and get citizenship, or later move to Kharkiv. And by then, no one will even remember your criminal record.
That's a good option too.
Or you could.
Well, it seems like there are more opportunities in Russia. You can think about it, consider your options, and get some advice too.
Yeah. You could bring your mother over.
But why bring her here? I have my dad both here and there.
Ah, well, all the more so since your father is in Russia.
Yeah, my father is in Russia.
There you go. So maybe your life is just beginning. Look what a...
It's time to think